G'day, I'm Dave Cummins from Future Property Group, and welcome to the Future of Sustainable Development, the podcast where we explore the ideas shaping tomorrow's built environment. Today, we're exploring the importance of solar panels. What are they, why are they important, and how to embrace them. Let's start simple. A solar panel is essentially a device that helps convert sunlight into electricity. That's it. It takes something that falls freely from the sky and helps turn it into everyday power. And that simplicity is extraordinary when you consider the stakes, because while coal, gas, and oil have powered much of modern history, they've also powered climate change. Solar, by contrast, is energy built without guilt, clean, renewable, and infinite. The history of solar panels is older than most people realize. The first practical PV cell was created at Bell Labs in the 1950s, and by the 1960s, NASA was using them to help power satellites. For decades, they were expensive and niche, but research published in PV Journal has shown that costs have fallen by more than 80% in the last decade alone. The International Renewable Energy Agency reported that solar is now the cheapest source of electricity in history, beating fossil fuels in cost in over 2/3 of the world. What started as space-age technology is now suburban rooftop reality. So what are the benefits of solar panels? Let's start with carbon. The International Energy Agency calculated that solar panel prevented over 2.5 gigatons of carbon dioxide emissions in 2022 alone. That's the equivalent of shutting down over 600 coal-fired power stations for over a year. In Australia, the Clean Energy Regulator reported that rooftop solar reduced emissions by around 20 million tonnes in 2021. Every home that installs panels isn't just about cutting bills, it's about cutting carbon. And there are health benefits too. The Lancet Countdown on Health and Climate Change has linked fossil fuels pollution to over 8 million premature deaths every year. Solar doesn't just reduce emissions, it helps reduce asthma, heart disease, and early deaths caused by dirty air. When we put panels on a roof, we're not just installing hardware, we're protecting human lives. Then there are their economics. A study in the Journal of Renewable and Sustainable Energy found that households with rooftop solar in Australia reduced their annual electricity bills by up to 60%. In fact, the Australian Energy Market Operator reported that rooftop solar is now the single largest source of electricity generation capacity in the country, surpassing coal. And on the property side, research in the Journal of Real Estate Economics showed that homes with solar panels sell for about 4% more and sell faster when compared to homes without them. If solar is this good, then why isn't it everywhere? Well, part of the resistance is cost perception. For years, panels were seen as expensive luxuries. And while the International Renewable Energy Agency showed that costs have plummeted, the upfront expense still puts some people off. But the truth is, payback periods have shrunk dramatically. In Australia, the Clean Energy Council estimates the average system now pays for itself within 3 to 5 years, and with savings that last for over 20 years. Another barrier is the grid itself. Research in energy policy has shown that high penetration of solar can cause challenges with voltage supply and shortages. In other words, the sun doesn't always shine when we need power. That's why pairing solar with batteries, as Nature Energy has documented, can increase the self-consumption of solar electricity by up to 70%. Storage smooths the peaks and fills of these gaps. There's also inertia. The construction industry is slow to adapt, and developers often focus on upfront costs, not long-term value. The World Green Building Council reminds us that property and construction accounts for 39% of global emissions, yet many projects are still designed without renewable integration because it's too complicated. Too complicated compared to what? Pumping billions of tons of CO2 into the sky every year? And then, of course, there's the vested interests. Fossil fuel industries still receive hundreds of billions of dollars in subsidies annually. The International Monetary Fund estimated that it's about $5.9 trillion globally in 2020. When you account for health and environmental costs, imagine what solar could do with that type of support. But let's shift to inspiration, because there are examples around the world that show what is possible when we embrace solar.
In Australia, South Australia has become the global leader according to the Australian Energy Market Operator. The state has moments when a rooftop solar alone means 100% of grid demand. In Victoria, Melbourne's Council House 2 has become one of the
First carbon neutral commercial buildings in the country, powered in part by solar. Globally, Germany has changed their policies, which has driven a nationwide solar boom. There is reports that the solar now provides about 10% of Germany's electricity. At latitudes much less sunny than Australia, that is a big win. In California, solar powered combined with storage has become the backbone of grid resilience, helping prevent blackouts during heat waves. And in rural Africa, as documented in the Journal of Development Economics, solar microgrids are providing first-time electricity access to millions, improving health, education, and economic opportunity. So how do we embrace more solar in property development? First, make it standard, not optional. Research in energy and buildings has shown that integrating solar at the design phase is up to 40% cheaper than retrofitting later. Developers should include panels as a baseline feature, not as a luxury upgrade. Second, pair solar with other strategies. Green roofs can actually increase panel efficiency. In Germany, they have found that bi-solar roofs, where vegetation sits below solar panels, can boost efficiency by up to 20% by cooling the panels naturally. That's nature and technology working together. Third, finance needs to align. Green loans and solar leasing models are already proving successful. Research in the Journal for Sustainable Finance and Investment show that innovative finance mechanisms reduce barriers to adoption, particularly in lower income communities. The evidence is clear. When capital flows, panels follows. Fourth, governments need to speed up approvals and grid integration. Too many projects face delays because of outdated regulations. Streamlines permitting, as shown in the Renewable Energy Journal, cuts costs significantly and accelerates deployment. So what would happen if we built more solar panels and more developments? Our cities would become cleaner and quieter. Households would save billions in energy costs. Communities would even be more resilient in heat waves and blackouts. The International Energy Agency has said that solar could provide 1/3 of global electricity by 2050, preventing 6 billion tons of carbon dioxide annually. And it's a future worth building towards. So here's the take-home message. Solar is not just technology. It's a statement of intent. It says we choose abundance over scarcity, health over pollution, resilience over fragility. The Journal of Renewable and Sustainable Energy shows that households save money. The Lancet shows that lives are saved, and the World Green Building Council has shown that emissions are reduced. And the International Renewable Energy Agency has shown that costs are no longer a barrier. The question is not, does solar work? It does. The question is, how quickly can we make it the new norm? Because the buildings we design today will last for decades, and every roof without solar is a wasted opportunity, a blank state where climate solution could have been fixed. Thank you for tuning in to the future of sustainable development. Join us next time as we uncover fresh research, new innovations, and best practices for building smarter, greener, and more resilient buildings. Until then, let's continue to build places that heal the land and empower communities for tomorrow.